Salutations, respected viewers. This is George from Ireland. So this video is going to be an introduction to contract law, part of my series on English law. When I say English law, we might also say common law, because the core principles of it would be shared by other common law countries. That's most Commonwealth countries, the United States, and so forth. That doesn't mean all the laws, no, not all the statutes, and all the case law doesn't quite apply. But as I say, the central principles would be shared by common law countries, broadly speaking. Well, so what is a contract? It's not what you might think. A contract is not necessarily a written document which says contract at the top. A contract is much more varied and sometimes amorphous than that. Well, we make agreements with each other all the time. Some of these agreements are contracts and others are not. When we make a contract, we need to know what was actually agreed, what this mutual exchange of obligations is. Sorry, that's a tautology. What this exchange of obligations is, what to expect, when to expect it, things like that. So contract involves two crucial things at the outset, otherwise you ain't got a contract: an offer and an acceptance. There'll be two parties, at least, an offeror and an offeree. An offeror is the one who makes the offer, and the offeree is the one who accepts the offer. We need definite acceptance. Usually there's a written contract. That makes it easy. It might be called a covenant. It's not just one of those things out of the Old Testament where God gives you special rights in exchange for your profuse. And another thing is, any lawyer would tell you, you can accept a contract by behaviour. It doesn't necessarily mean signing on the dotted line. I once had a housing agreement and I was going to leave and I wasn't going to clean the place up. And I was told, well, if you don't, we might charge you for cleaning. And I thought, ha. Sneakily, I never even signed the housing agreement, so you can't get me there because you didn't actually bother to check and hassle me to sign it. But my law student friend at the time said, you know, by living in it, knowing what the terms are, you have accepted it through conduct, even if your name isn't on that dotted line. We make social agreements all the time, and these are not governed by contract. The courts are not going to intervene on these trivialities. You may know the old maxim, de minimis non curat lex. The law does not care about the smallest things. In law, some other things are said to be de minimis, so trifling that the law won't intervene. Let's say cannabis is forbidden in your jurisdiction. Supposing somebody had smoked it over the border and came in to that jurisdiction and a dog in the airport started yapping, and then they found out that there was still some of it in his throat or whatever, that would just be such a tiny amount, we're just going to let that drift. That's what we mean by de minimis. We don't follow up things which are very slight indeed. Okay, social agreements which are not to be adjudicated by the courts, otherwise the courts would soon be overwhelmed by things which are so petty. Jill agrees to meet Ram to go on a date with him, but then Jill stands him up. There was a contract. He made an offer. She accepted that offer. He was going to pay for dinner or something. Well, the courts say, nothing to do with us. Susan makes an agreement to go with Ulrika to the bowling alley. Susan cancels at the last minute, despite Ulrika's paid for something already and can't get the money back. There was no contract. It was just to agree. You invite someone to dinner and the person doesn't show up, things of that nature. You agree to go on a shopping trip to the cinema. The courts are not going to intervene in that. You cannot sue someone for something of that nature, all right? So we need to know definitely what's agreed. If it's money, how much money is to be paid. Sometimes they don't actually state the amount, but there needs to be a way of calculating it. I'm going to exchange $100 with you next Wednesday, and you're going to give me euros, and we're going to go by the official rate of the European Central Bank. We don't know how many euros that is, but we have a definite way of finding out what it is. And next Wednesday, not at some point in the future. That's too imprecise. So we need a degree of certainty about what precisely is agreed. If an offer is made and the offer is not accepted, then that's it. There's no contract. If the offer is made and then a counter offer comes back from the offeree who says, I don't agree with those terms, here's another. That destroys the first offer, we move on to a second offer, we go from there. Things like that. So it's all about a party. So a party can be a natural person, it can be an organization, anything like that. So that's why we say, now we will not accept the strong pushing the weak to the wall. That's why there are things like minimum wages. We can't have wage slavery, where you can in the United States. But there are limits. Now, if you've agreed to do something foolish, to sell something for well below market price, that was, you still did it. The courts are not going to intervene just because you were unwise and made a bad bargain. So contracts can be voided, as in declared to be a nullity, if it's something illegal. For instance, a contract killing. No, you hire a hitman. I'm afraid you can't sue the hitman for not doing what he said, nor indeed can the hitman sue you for not coughing up. Things which go against public policy, things which really offend the dignity of the court. What else would change an offer? Non est factum. It is not done for some reason. There's just something wrong with the way it's formed. So contracts can be illegal as performed, as in contract to kill somebody, or illegal as performed, as in it was legal to do, but you did it in an illegal way. Like, let's say, pizza delivery, like the person drove too fast and knocked somebody down on the way, breaking the law, and came with the pizza. You might say, oh my God, I'm not going to accept that because you injured somebody on the way by your speeding. You might get out of paying for it that way. So things like that. Then there are more tricky situations when you're dealing with a rogue, someone with an alias or a false identity. What happens there? We'll get more into it. But this is at the outset. These are some of the key issues to look at in contract. Impossibility, physical impossibility. Let's see. Alan agrees with Bob to buy Bob's horse. Bob's horse is called Nag. They sign on it, shake on it, and then Bob goes home to his stables to discover that Nag is dropped dead. Well, there can be no contract because of physical impossibility. The horse is dropped dead. There can be other things to do with, let's say, a mistaken identity. Two ships with the same name, we got mixed up about which ship was what. Things like that. All right, so that is just a very brief overview of some of the issues to deal with in contract law. In my next video, I shall delve into greater depth.